You weren't pushed out of this family, Ivy. You walked out. Because deep down, you knew you were never worth staying. That's what she said to me. Evelyn, my mother. While the garden raised their glasses and I stood in the shadows, the imprint of my father's grip still fresh on my arm. Have you ever been treated like the outsider in your own home? Erased with silence, then blamed for the noise when you finally spoke up? Then this isn't just my story. It's for anyone who's ever been forced to choose between peace and their own identity. Stay, because silence isn't a safe place anymore. It's where the truth begins to speak. The string quartet played something generic and upbeat, and a man I didn't recognize leaned his blazer on the back of my chair without asking. I shifted slightly, reminding myself to unclench my jaw before it cracked. On the far end of the manicured lawn, my mother stood beneath the rose arch, wine glass raised, the spotlight of the setting sun catching the shimmer of her peach silk dress. Evelyn Waverly, hostess, matriarch, and master of narrative, was mid-toast. To Brielle, the heartbeat of this family, she declared, voice syrupy and practiced. To those who shaped her, Douglas, of course, her late grandfather, whom she takes after, and our dear Aunt Claudine, whose generosity made all of this possible. Polite applause, a ripple of murmured agreement. My name was never in danger of making the list. 6 years. That's how long it had been since I left. No dramatic exit, no final words, just silence. I hadn't planned to return, ever. But when Brielle's engagement invitation arrived, thick cardstock, gold foil edges, her handwriting on the envelope, I felt something tighten in my chest. Not sentimentality, not hope, just the familiar pull of unfinished business. So here I was, wearing navy to avoid black. No +1, and no illusions. Brielle spotted me across the garden and gave a hesitant wave, then mouthed, "Sorry." Her dress was a soft blush, classic cut, beautiful. She looked like someone else's sister, like someone who hadn't watched me pack my car at midnight all those years ago without saying a word. A waiter slid past me, leaving behind a glass of sparkling something. I nodded in thanks, then took a small sip. Bitter. "You're Ivy, right?" A woman to my left turned slightly. I recognized the surname on her place card. Whitaker. No relation. Probably a coworker of my father's or one of Brielle's PR firm connections. "Yes." She smiled, too brightly. "I heard about the family trust thing. That must have been—" I looked at her directly. She blinked. "I just love your sister," she added quickly. "Such grace. So humble." The laugh I didn't let out lodged in my throat. The night unraveled in long, choreographed scenes. People I hadn't seen in a decade hugged me like we'd had coffee last week. They complimented my dress, asked where I'd been hiding, and always mentioned how proud Evelyn and Douglas must be of Brielle. At some point, I ended up near the stone fountain, just far enough from the crowd to breathe. A teenage server walked by and offered me a tray of canapes. I declined. "You look like you could use something stronger than cheese puffs," a low voice said. I turned. Nathan Garrison. Once Brielle's high school friend, now a junior partner at one of the firms my father had courted. His tux was a little too tight at the shoulders, but his smile was real. I managed a nod. "Still allergic to the circus?" he asked, joining me by the fountain. "Always." "You know they're pretending you're not here." I exhaled through my nose. "I know." He paused. Brielle didn't want this. The party, the size, she told me. I raised an eyebrow. But she's still smiling through it. Nathan didn't answer. He looked at the crowd, then back at me. "They think you're dangerous, for not needing them." Before I could respond, a round of laughter erupted from the center tent. I didn't need to look to know who was speaking. "At least no one tried to outshine the bride with gifts they couldn't afford," Douglas said, his voice booming with the same half grin he'd always used when mocking me in public. Laughter followed. Applause. The kind that lingered too long. I froze, My glass tight in my hand. Evelyn looked amused. Brielle, I noticed, did not. I said nothing. I didn't flinch, but my jaw locked. A waiter approached silently and handed me an envelope, monogrammed with the family crest. Everyone else kept clapping. No one noticed. I opened it. Inside was a printed message, neatly folded in thirds. You'll present the car after dinner. That's the least you can do. You already gave it to them once, Brielle whispered. Just make it official tonight. It'll look good for the family. The night air had cooled, and fairy lights stretched overhead like delicate threads holding together a party on the verge of unraveling. Laughter trickled around the garden like the lingering scent of roses. Pleasant, rehearsed, and vaguely suffocating. I didn't respond to Brielle immediately. We stood near the photo board now, surrounded by carefully curated moments. Douglas shaking hands with state senators, Evelyn beaming beside gala centerpieces, and Brielle's milestones in every glossy frame. My own image appeared only once. Age 15, awkward and half-cut from the frame. Like a historical inconvenience, no one had the energy to crop out entirely. 2 years ago, I had the car delivered. Hand-stitched leather, custom paint, a 6-figure indulgence I'd chosen not to publicize. It was a peace offering, or maybe a bribe for silence. Either way, it had my name on the title. Still does. Now they wanted it back. But this time, on their terms, in their spotlight, wrapped in public spectacle and served with a dessert fork. I don't want drama, Brielle added, voice low. Not tonight. I'm not the one staging it, I replied, folding my arms. They are. Evelyn spotted me by the photo board and approached, her heels silent on the stone pathway. Darling, she said, slipping between me and Brielle like a silk curtain. Can we have a quick word? I followed her to the far side of the garden, where shadows played across the side of the house and the string lights ended. She stopped under a pergola and turned sharply. You know, a gesture like this would mean a lot, she began, especially with so many family friends watching. What gesture? I asked, though I already knew. Evelyn didn't blink. The car, Ivy. It's a symbol, and symbols need witnesses. It was a gift, I said. 2 years ago. She smiled, tight, elegant. Then think of this as completing the gesture, closure, gratitude. My jaw tensed. Why now? Because the spotlight is here, she said plainly, and because we raised you. A gift without gratitude is hollow. The words hit harder than she intended. Not because of their bite, but their casual cruelty. The assumption that parenthood was transactional, that their love, their acceptance came at a price I was still expected to pay. Brielle lingered nearby, pretending to scroll through her phone. When I looked at her, she looked away. I walked back to my table without a word, past waiters offering meringues and champagne, past men I hadn't seen since graduation. I sat down, folded the napkin in my lap, and smiled at no one. This wasn't about the car. It never had been. It was about theater. Power dressed in couture, control camouflaged as tradition. Tessa's text pinged silently on my phone. You good? Want me to fake a car emergency? I typed back. Not yet. But thanks. A bell rang. Delicate, controlled. The final course. Dessert was lemon custard with crystallized basil. The pianist played a soft rendition of Moon River. Douglas clinked his glass, the way he always did before an ambush. Our eldest, he announced, has something to share. The murmuring paused. Heads turned. A sea of teeth and champagne. I stood, smiled, held my glass aloft. To the ones who gave me life, I said clearly, and taught me exactly what not to be. Silence. Heavy, piercing, Brielle's spoon froze midair. Evelyn's fingers clenched around her wine stem. Douglas's smirk flickered, just barely. I turned to leave, walked past the table with the custards and berries, set the car key, black fob, gold Waverly crest, onto the nearest dessert tray. Consider this returned. You made us look weak, Douglas hissed. Now you'll see what weak looks like. The hallway near the kitchen was narrow, lined with family portraits and dim sconces that cast long shadows against the cream walls. It smelled faintly of rosemary and old varnish, the kind of space no guest wandered into, a place reserved for staff and secrets. Douglas blocked my path, his chest puffed beneath a finely tailored tuxedo. He didn't yell. He never did. His rage was private, quiet, and all the more dangerous for it. "Do you think that little speech was clever?" he asked, stepping closer. I held his gaze. It was honest. His hand shot out, grabbing my arm just above the elbow. The grip was tight, mean. Not for control, but punishment. His fingers pressed into muscle and bone like he was trying to leave a message. His eyes burned. "We gave you everything," he growled, "and you spit on us." "I gave you a car," I said calmly. "You wanted a performance. You embarrassed this family." I didn't flinch. "This family embarrasses itself." His jaw tightened. I could see the vein on his temple pulse. "You think silence protects you?" he sneered, echoing a line I'd overheard him say years ago, back when I still believed being quiet meant being safe. "Let's teach you otherwise." I didn't pull away. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. "Douglas," a voice called. Soft, cold. "Evelyn." She stood at the end of the hallway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Her earrings glinted in the low light, catching just enough reflection to look sharp. She didn't step closer. She didn't ask him to let go. He did anyway after a long second. My arm throbbed, but I didn't touch it. No one said a word as I walked past them both. I pushed through the swinging door, past the kitchen bustle and the clatter of dishes. No one stopped me. No one met my eyes. Outside, the air was thicker, warmer. The laughter from the garden had taken on a slightly drunken rhythm. Music drifted lazily from the speakers. Some Frank Sinatra cover, saccharine and ironic. I didn't go toward the party. I went the other way, along the side path of the house under the cypress trees that led to the garage. The keypad blinked red when I approached. I tried the handle anyway. It opened. Inside, the lights were motion-activated, flickering on one by one like a slow reveal. There were 4 cars, lined up like showroom models. The Rolls-Royce was at the far end, black lacquer body gleaming like a secret. I opened the driver's side door. The cabin lights lit up. "Welcome, Ivy Waverly." My name, still on the dash. Still legal, still mine. I slid into the seat, closed the door, pressed the ignition. The engine purred. Low, confident, like it belonged to someone who knew exactly what she was doing. I shifted into drive. The garage door rolled upward slowly, reluctantly. As the car moved forward, I turned left instead of right, toward the party, toward the gravel circle where guests mingled beneath fairy lights. I didn't floor it. I moved with deliberate grace. Let them hear it. Let them look up. And they did. Faces turned. Wine glasses paused mid-sip. Evelyn's smile froze. Douglas stepped forward, then stopped. I saw Brielle break from the crowd, barefoot now, running across the lawn. I slowed. Let her catch up. She reached the passenger side, out of breath, hair wild, voice shaking. "Ivy, please, just talk to them." I lowered the window. "I have," I said softly. Every silence was me screaming. She stared at me like she wanted to say something more. But I didn't wait. I raised the window, shifted gear, pulled forward. No one tried to stop me. By the time I reached the front gate, I had one hand on the wheel and the other on my phone. I tapped a number I knew by heart. Caleb Morgan answered on the first ring. "I want to make this legal," I said. "The car. The key? Everything." "Ms. Waverly," Caleb said, placing the document in front of me. "They never owned the car. You did. You still do." Sunlight poured through the tall windows of Caleb's office, casting clean lines across his white desk. Outside, the skyline of downtown Los Angeles shimmered beneath a cloudless morning. It was Sunday, April 14th. The world kept moving, and I was done pretending I hadn't noticed. Caleb slid a manila folder toward me. Inside, everything was perfectly organized. Purchase agreement, wire transfer receipt, registration under my LLC, insurance documents, and title. The signature line was still crisp. My name, Ivy Waverly, untouched by anyone else's pen. "You paid for the car outright," he said, tapping the first page. "No co-signers, no shared ownership. Registered to your business entity. Your parents may have used it, but legally it was never theirs." "I know," I said. "But you need more than knowledge," he replied. "You need finality." He leaned forward. "If they push back, publicly or legally, we can counter. But if you sell it before they move, you remove their leverage. No property, no claim." I nodded. "I'm ready." He produced a slim legal form, power of sale authorization, already populated with the VIN, make, model, and LLC details. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake. By noon, I was standing at the front desk of Monterre Luxury Autos on Sunset Boulevard, the Rolls parked outside under glass awnings that caught and refracted the light like diamonds. The dealership was hushed, tastefully extravagant. White tile floors, walls lined with brushed metal, and floor-to-ceiling posters of cars on winding cliffs. The manager, a woman in her 60s with a platinum bob and quiet authority, reviewed the documents Caleb had sent ahead. After a pause, she extended her hand. "You're making a statement," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm ending one." She led me outside where an assistant photographed the vehicle, recorded its mileage, and began the trade-in appraisal. It wasn't about the money. I didn't care about the valuation. I stood back and watched as the license plate was unscrewed. For a brief second, the car looked naked. No longer mine, not yet someone else's. I opened the glove box, took one last look inside. The engraved fob was still there. "To Mom and Dad, with belief." The irony burned hotter than anger. I slipped it into my coat pocket and left the rest behind. The paperwork took another hour. I signed everything, walked out lighter. By the time I reached the street, Caleb was already calling. "Ivy," he said without greeting. "Your father just filed a statement with the LA Business Journal. He's accusing you of grand theft and claiming you're mentally unstable." The first headline I saw Monday morning was, "Waverly heiress unravels, steals gift from parents." It flashed across the top of the news aggregator app I hadn't meant to open. Just muscle memory, my thumb sliding across the screen while the coffee brewed behind me. The article came with a glossy photo from the party. Me in the shadows behind the dessert table, lips closed, shoulders square, car key gleaming on the tray like a loaded weapon. I didn't click the link. I didn't need to. The rest came in quick succession. Statements from a source close to the Waverlys. Language curated to slice. Ms. Ivy Waverly has struggled emotionally for years. A generous gift was maliciously reclaimed. She is not a part of the family legacy by choice. I stared at the screen until it blurred. My jaw tensed. The same tactic Douglas had always used. Turn the first punch into a narrative, then dare anyone to contradict him. He once told me, "Control the narrative and you control the world." He was trying to control mine. The phone buzzed again. This time it was Brielle. Just a single line of text and a video file. "You need this." I opened it. It was shaky, vertical, clearly captured by a phone tucked halfway into a purse. The angle was low, but the audio was clear. Douglas's voice, acidic, tight. My own, controlled. Then, unmistakably, the moment. His hand locking around my arm, fingers digging in. My body stiffening. It was time-stamped. Dated. Undeniable. A minute later, Caleb texted. "Got the footage. Uploading now with legal disclaimer. No edits. Timestamp intact." Then Brielle again. "I'm sorry I didn't stop it." but I won't lie for them anymore. I blinked hard. Her words weren't an apology. They were a fracture, one that finally cracked through the shell she'd been raised in. Another message buzzed in. This one from Uncle Nathan, my mother's older brother, who'd long been exiled from the family's spotlight after a falling out no one ever fully explained. This isn't the first time they've rewritten the truth. I'll speak if you need. I sat back on the couch, the city muted behind the loft's glass windows. The world below kept humming, oblivious, impatient. But inside, something in me stilled. A current settled. I opened the camera app. No makeup, no script. I pressed record. My name is Ivy Waverly. I didn't steal. I retrieved what was mine. The car was legally purchased, registered, and paid for by me. I paused. Let that land. And silence doesn't mean consent. It just means survival. I've been silent for years. That ends now. I hit stop. No filters, no edits. I sent the file to Caleb, who uploaded it to the law firm's verified page with documentation links and a brief statement. Then I shared it on my own. I didn't refresh the comments. I didn't need to. The dealership called just after noon. Ms. Waverly? The manager's voice was calm, professional. The car's been sold. Payment processed. We've wired the funds to your legal trust. I dropped the key fob into the drawer, next to a photo of me, age 12, still believing I'd always belong. It landed softly against the wood, a muted clink that felt too quiet for what it symbolized. The fob, sleek and engraved, caught a slice of morning light before settling against the edge of the photo frame. I closed the drawer slowly. Tuesday, April 16th. The loft was silent, sunlight filtering through the sheer curtains like a gentle verdict. On the kitchen counter sat the printed receipt from the dealership. 6 figures and change, already transferred into a legal trust Caleb helped set up. It might have been a windfall. It felt more like a release. One unopened message blinked on my phone. Brielle Waverly. I hope someday we'll speak again. But I understand if we don't. No demands, no blame, just space. I stared at it for a long time, then hit save, not delete. A second draft email to Uncle Nathan hovered on my laptop screen. I'd written and rewritten it all morning, trying to find the right words. In the end, I deleted the paragraphs and typed only this. No need for testimony. Thank you for believing me when I didn't know I could. Ivy. The send button clicked without hesitation. Later that afternoon, I pulled on a jacket and headed north. Griffith Park was quiet for a weekday. Just a few hikers, couples, and the occasional runner weaving through the trail. I climbed until the city stretched wide beneath me, stitched in light and noise I couldn't hear from here. My lungs burned a little. It felt good. Tessa appeared minutes later, her hair in a wind-tossed bun, water bottle tucked under one arm. No small talk, just a companionable silence as we reached the overlook and sat on a bench faded from sun and years. I held the view a moment longer before I said it. I sold the car. Tessa looked sideways at me, brow raised slightly. You kept the key? I nodded once. Not to unlock, just to remember what never opened. She didn't respond, only reached into her backpack and handed me a tangerine. I peeled it slowly, letting the citrus scent cut through the wind. The world didn't look different, but I did. Back at home, I opened my contacts and hovered over the names. Evelyn Waverly. Douglas Waverly. 2 taps. Delete. No confirmation prompt. Just gone. And for the first time in years, it didn't feel like I'd lost anything. I sat back on the couch, the drawer still closed beside me. The city pulsed below, and somewhere behind it all, a new kind of quiet settled inside my chest. I exhaled and smiled. There was no final confrontation, no dramatic showdown under the lights. Just Ivy, alone in her loft, placing a key fob into a drawer. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. It wasn't about the car anymore. It never really was. It was about everything it symbolized. The need to be seen, the cost of silence, and the false weight of a family name that never protected her. The key didn't unlock anything now, but it reminded her of everything she had locked away just to keep peace. In the end, Ivy didn't need them to admit they were wrong. She didn't wait for apologies that would never come, or for hearts too cold to thaw. Instead, she reclaimed the one thing they had tried to take without signatures or lawyers: her right to define herself. When Douglas and Evelyn weaponized public image, Ivy countered with something far stronger: undeniable truth, calmly delivered, backed by documentation and dignity. Not once did she raise her voice. But her silence, finally, spoke in volumes too loud to ignore. Brielle's quiet shift, her apology, her footage, proved that even those raised in a system of control can still choose courage. And Ivy's refusal to retaliate with rage was not weakness, but restraint honed by years of surviving under the same roof as manipulation. Her story wasn't a tale of revenge. It was about reclaiming space, legal, emotional, and spiritual, that had long been occupied by the shadows of people who mistook proximity for ownership. Justice doesn't always arrive with sirens or verdicts. Sometimes it slips in on a Monday morning in the form of a video, a wire transfer, or a name that refuses to be erased. Ivy never needed to win a war. She only needed to walk away without losing herself. Let her story be a quiet reminder. Truth doesn't rush. It waits, then strikes when the lies are tired and the world is ready to listen. And when the world still isn't ready, that's okay. Walk anyway. Because sometimes the greatest form of justice is choosing to never again ask for permission to exist. If Ivy's story stayed with you, don't scroll away just yet. Hit like, subscribe, and step into more stories like this, where silence is shattered, masks fall, and the people written out rewrite the ending. On this channel, we don't just tell stories. We uncover truths, one name, one reckoning, one voice at a time. Stay, because someone out there is still waiting to remember who they are. You could build an empire, Quinn, but to this family, you'll always be the daughter born the wrong gender. This should never be a sentence spoken by anyone. Not by family, not by society, not by tradition. Because each of us has the right to rise. Not to beg for a seat, but to build the entire room ourselves. And sometimes, the deepest form of revenge is to shine exactly where they once tried to bury you in silence. Stay, because this is only the beginning. The metal chair screeched against the concrete floor as I tried to adjust it without catching my dress in a rusted bolt. The hem of my navy blue gown, custom-tailored, grazed a puddle I didn't dare sniff too closely. Fluorescent lighting buzzed overhead like an insect too stubborn to die, and the smell of industrial cleaner clung to the walls like shame. Somewhere far away, laughter rang out, the kind of polished, empty laughter that filled rooms lined with champagne flutes and forced smiles. I'd promised myself I wouldn't care anymore. But as I stared at the name tags on the main table, I knew this wasn't an accident. The card that read Quinn Waverly had a thick black line slashed through it like I'd died and no one told me. In its place, an ornate calligraphy card now bore the name of someone I didn't recognize. Some cousin from their investment arm, probably. I hadn't even known there was a cousin named Gregory. Daniel's hand hovered at my lower back, steadying. He said nothing, but I could see the storm behind his silence. "I'm fine," I whispered. "Let them." His jaw clenched. "They seated you in the staff overflow. Storage room, Quinn." "I noticed," I said, plastering on a smile as a passing guest glanced our way. "This will be useful later." The waitress had been apologetic. Young, probably new, her cheeks burning red as she'd stammered, "This way, Miss Waverly. I think the family requested." "It's all right," I had said, voice calm. Always calm, especially when it wasn't. Now, in the shadow of Langford Estate's grand ballroom, I sat in a room meant for broken furniture and unopened crates of cheap wine. The chandelier in the hall had sparkled as we entered, casting golden light over manicured hands and diamond cufflinks. Here, my company was a mop handle and a forgotten Santa decoration with one eye missing. Daniel crouched beside me, inspecting the door. No handle on the inside. Of course not, I muttered. Wouldn't want the spare linens escaping. He straightened, his blue eyes searching mine. You don't have to do this. We can leave now. And miss the cake cutting? I smirked, though my throat ached. Number, I want to see how this plays out. The door creaked open again. Brittany floated in on a cloud of tulle and glitter, all smiles and Botox. Oh, you made it. I thought you might prefer somewhere quiet, given how busy the main hall is. I tilted my head. This is definitely quiet. Right? She chirped. Anyway, Ethan's just overwhelmed. Weddings, you know? Stressful. She leaned in conspiratorially. I told him you might be more comfortable here. He didn't want to, well, you know. You've always preferred low-key. I